Real results guarantee. Get your free Real Hair Starter Kit and new $300 gift card. Scan, call, or go to Bosley.com right now.
A Virginia jury finds Brendan Banfield guilty of double homicide. But what is his au pair co-defendant really facing when her sentencing starts next week? In Arizona, the desperate search for Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother. Why the sheriff is calling her home a crime scene. And in Texas, a judge indicted for having an attorney handcuffed and placed in the jury box. We'll get our panel's hot takes on that one. The court of law is done for the day, so let's call to order Court of Opinion.
In criminal case number FE 2024-666, count 1, we, the jury on the issue, join in the case of the Commonwealth of Virginia versus Brendan Robert Banfield, defendant, find the defendant guilty of aggravated murder of Joseph Ryan and Christine Banfield as part of the same act or transaction.
Welcome to Court of Opinion. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for joining us. Today was a big day in Fairfax County, Virginia. Jurors came back with that guilty verdict on all counts for Brendan Banfield. Now, jurors sided with the prosecution, who said that Banfield was the mastermind in this disturbing plot to lure an unsuspecting man to have violent sex with his wife and then frame that man for her murder. Jurors also sided with the testimony of the family au pair. She testified about the affair she had with Banfield and how she was part of the murder plot. The defense tried convincing the jury that the young nanny had been pressured by the prosecution to tell that story, but it didn't work. Now, Brendan is going to be sentenced on May 8th, and former au pair Juliana Maglhays, she will be sentenced first on February 13th. So next week, she will be inside of a courtroom. Before we break down what she's really facing at sentencing, let's take a look back at what these former lovers turned co-defendants with their conflicting stories said on the stand.
So he didn't want to get divorced. Did he tell you what he wanted to do?
Yes.
What did he say?
He mentioned his plan to get rid of her.
And you said he mentioned his plan to get rid of her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did he talk about that first?
I would say it was in October 2022.
And what specifically was his plan to get rid of her?
Initially, he didn't really know what he would do.
At some point, while you were working for the Banfield family, did your relationship with the defendant change?
Yes.
How did it change?
It became sexual.
Did the defendant ever talk with you about any long-term plans for the two of you?
Not initially.
Not initially. Did he ever, though?
Yes.
When did that talk start?
I think it started after he talked about his plan.
Okay. And did he ever talk about the two of you getting married or the two of you having children?
Yes. When I got to the bedroom, Brendan said he yelled, "Police officer," and Christine's first reaction, that was the first time I heard she say anything at that point. Then she yelled back at Brendan, saying, "Brendan, he has a knife." And yeah, that's when Brendan first shot Joe. I was just crouching down on myself and covering my ears and covering my eyes. And a few times I looked and I was able to see him stabbing her.
It appeared that he did a very forceful stab towards Christine, and Christine kind of spun away from him. So this kind of had Joe now like on his knees, kind of facing Christine, of which I saw him do a downward stabbing stroke, and that's when I fired at him. Christine told me that she was bleeding out, and that That she was sorry and that she loved me.
You've had multiple affairs, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and one of those affairs was with a woman named Danielle, who you met on a fetish site searching for sugar babies. Is that correct?
I would not call it a fetish site.
You see Joe Ryan behind your naked wife with something metal in his hand. Is that accurate?
Yes.
You did not yell for Juliana, who's behind you, to call 911.
I didn't know that Juliana was behind me or had climbed the stairs at that point. I had only seen her on the main floor leaving.
Okay, but you told us that the foyer is this big echoey chamber that you can hear from anywhere in the house. If she's in the foyer and you're standing at the door, whether or not she's immediately behind you, if you yelled, call 911, she would hear you, wouldn't she? In this echoey foyer.
Yes, she would hear that.
Okay, and when first responders arrived, you agree you're on video holding her neck with your bare hand, correct?
I think so.
So where had the towel, the blanket, the sheet gone at that point after you were instructed by 911?
I think the towel was right next to me, but
It was under your knees, wasn't it?
I don't know.
He put himself in the line of fire there on the witness stand, and the jury, they took him down with that guilty on all counts for the verdict today. Let's see what our guest panel thinks about today. We've got with us family law attorney and law professor Randy Kessler, civil rights attorney for parents or parents' rights attorney David DeLugas is with us as well. And we have joining us for the first time, we have retired Florida State Circuit Court Judge Larry Seidlin with us. So good to have all of you joining us to talk about this big day in Virginia. We've been following this case for many days. Randy, what's your opinion of the verdict? Were you surprised at all?
No, I mean, it's a prosecutor's dream come true. Oh, this guy's going to testify? I mean, any defendant that testifies gives a prosecution a good chance because they don't usually get to cross-examine, right? They're always direct exam. They're always putting on their evidence. They're always trying to prove their case. They've got to meet their burden. They don't get a chance to cross-examine the guy. And I'm sure they were licking their chops saying, this guy, this story? Oh, you had other affairs. Oh, you didn't call 911. I mean, there was too much there. Field day for them. Not surprised by the verdict, no.
David, I was just watching your face, watching back some of that testimony. It's like you were incredulous that this actually came out in court.
It's actually not surprising. What else is he going to do if he doesn't get an offer that he can accept? Why not go to trial? Because the worst outcome is what happened. So he goes to trial, and among the things that I picked up was his alibi for earlier in the day or a different day is that he said he had a meeting with people at work. Except that his boss testifies that never happened, and all the people that he would have met with were out of town or out of the country even. So the thing is, you lie about something that definitive, and yet your credibility against the au pair's credibility is the only hope you have. You just shot yourself in the foot.
Oh, yeah. If we get to hear from some of these jurors, that will be very interesting to see what stood out to them. Judge Seidlin, I'd love to get your opinion on this case, his decision to take the stand, and really what stood out to you the most when you looked into this case.
You know, this defendant, Brandon, he's a first-class moron. He concocts this scheme that makes no sense. He has the au pair as his partner in this comedy of errors, and he makes so many errors. He's just a full-fledged meatball. He's a devilish person. Go to court and get a divorce. Work it out, the payments and the child custody. He kills the mother of his child. He's a sick demon.
Oh, yeah. The prosecution
and the
called
jury
him
did the right
monstrous.
thing. It's a tough case to prove. It's not a smoking gun where there's a gun and 3 people see him shoot her. It's a tough case to prove, and the prosecutor did a terrific job.
Absolutely. We got to hear from those prosecutors once this was all over. But you mentioned the au pair, Judge Seidlin, so I want to actually go back because that's a big question that our Court of Opinion, Court TV viewers have wanted to know. What's going to happen with Juliana Magla Hayes? What's her sentence really? Is she going to get time served? They're pretty outraged if she gets time served. Let's take a listen back to her on the stand. She's being asked specifically about her deal and what she understands it to be.
Do you understand that this document tells us that you pled guilty to manslaughter?
Yes.
And do you understand that this document tells us that the maximum penalty for manslaughter is 10 years?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that you can receive up to 10 years for this
Yes.
in this plea? Is it fair to say that you hope that you get less than 10 years?
Yes.
All right, so it's not set in stone. You just asked me that, David, about whether it's set in stone. So let's talk about that, because right there you hear her understand that she pleaded guilty to manslaughter. She would have been facing life if she had been found guilty as charged. Right. So for manslaughter, up to 10. Her sentencing is February 13th. What's important to know when it comes to a plea deal, but your sentencing hasn't happened yet?
Well, hindsight's 20/20, right? And the viewers are going to be upset if she only gets time served, or if she only gets 10 years, they should be upset because she was part of it. But that's not the calculus. The calculus is when the prosecution thinks, if we get her to point the finger at him, we win. I mean, that's not invaluable, but it's about as close to invaluable. Why take the risk and not offer her a deal that guarantees she's going to testify? So they may well have said, we're going to recommend time served, or the lower end of the time served to 10 years, and she's banking on something less. But even if she gets 10 years, she got away with murder.
You know, today at the press conference for the prosecution, they didn't say that they would recommend time served. Let's take a listen to what they did have to say about this plea deal.
Do you understand that this document tells us?
I think it's really, really important that, you know, we don't characterize this as a quote-unquote sweetheart deal. This is the work of being a prosecutor. She still is taking accountability for homicides. When you take a look at what the relative culpability is, I think that where we have landed is appropriate. And quite frankly, Juliana, by testifying, answered a lot of questions, not only for us, but for the jury. Let's not forget how important her testimony may have been to some of those jurors. So her still facing up to 10 years in prison is very, very significant.
So, David, prosecution saying that's not a sweetheart deal. Don't call it that.
I tell you what,
It's an au pair deal.
I want to put the prosecutor on the stand. Let me ask him a series of questions. What did you tell her you were going to recommend to the judge? She killed somebody. You acknowledge that, right? Why didn't you decide to try these cases separately and just pit them against one another? Put the person on the stand to testify against the other. They're going to take the fifth and not testify, but that will be damning. Then they'd have to decide each defendant in separate trial. I want the prosecutor to tell us, why didn't you try both cases and see where it lands? Because that would be the most just outcome. Then we let two juries decide.
Judge Seidlin, love to get your opinion on the discretion that this judge will have. If it is indeed between time served and 10 years, where do you think this falls?
It's going to fall where she gets maybe a little bit above time served, maybe another year or so. A trial is a contest. And as a former prosecutor, you want to win the contest. They couldn't prove this case without the au pair. That au pair sealed his fate. And so you got to give the au pair a deal. And she became a flipper. And I have clients sometimes that want to not go to jail or get much less jail, and they flip. And so this au pair made a wise decision in testifying against her former lover. And she's going to get very little time, very little additional time. Morally, is it right? Shouldn't she spend the rest of her life in jail for being such a central figure in the death of the mother and all of that? Yes, but you're trying to win. The prosecutor needed her badly to win, and gave her a hell of a deal. It will be a great deal for her.
Hey, I just want to ask one more question. Did they try to get him to flip on her? Because as I understand it, she's the one that fired the fatal bullet into the unsuspecting man. So they should have tried cutting deals with both of them and figured out which one's going to take the deal. Tell you what, we'll give you life with possibility of parole, Mr. Banfield, but you got to flip on her.
Well, I think they certainly wanted to take him down. He was the prime mastermind in their minds of all of this, and they arrested her first, hoping she would flip. Today, now I agree with what Judge Seidlin said about them not being able to make this case without the au pair, but today in that press conference, they said they were prepared to go forward and felt that they could have won a case without the au pair, without her testimony at all. What do you think, Randy?
I think that's, of course, what you say. Oh, we would have won it with our hands, you know, tied behind our back. This case, I mean, the facts were there. The guy did it. Of course, in hindsight, because they're going to be accused of giving her a sweetheart, an au pair, a lovely deal. And so to get away from that public image, they're going to say, listen, you know, we didn't, you know, bank everything on her. We didn't give her everything. We had the case ready to go. We could have won it without her. And maybe they would have won it without her. But do you take that kind of risk? I mean, I don't know why they're shying away from it. They should say, listen, we wanted to do everything we could to make sure that the guy who really did it, that he goes away. And she's not getting off scot-free. And even if she only goes to jail for a few years, still the rest of her life, she is a felon, a murderer.
And that's where we have to leave it. February 13th, that is next week, that Juliana Magalhaes will be back inside of that Fairfax County courtroom for her own sentencing. Coming up, we're turning our attention to New Jersey in the Mansion murders trial for Paul Caneiro. More evidence coming out in this tragic family murders case, and it's focused on the two child victims today. We'll talk about what it reveals about the crime next.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a widow who wrote a children's book on grief stands accused of poisoning her husband. We have key takeaways from today's big hearing in the case against Corey Richins.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV. This week,
covering the country's biggest trials before we bring you inside the courtroom. Plus, the most compelling true crime cases in our daily spotlight.
Opening statements with Julie Grant. Mornings at 8, 7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. We are heading now to New Jersey for the Mansions murders trial for defendant Paul Caneiro. Prosecutors say Paul killed his brother and sister-in-law and then fatally stabbed his niece and nephew. This all back in 2018. He then, according to the prosecution, lit their house on fire in an attempt to conceal the crime and then lit his own house on fire to create this illusion of an attack against the brothers. Now, the defense says someone else did it. And jurors took in hours of evidence today, especially evidence related to the child victims in this case, the defendant's niece and nephew. That took center stage. So we're taking a closer look, and here's what our team chose as some of the most impactful evidence that this jury saw, starting with the bloody jeans that belonged to Paul that had DNA from his niece and nephew, Sophia and Jesse Caneiro, on them. Now, a DNA analyst testified that Sophia and Jesse's DNA were found on multiple stains on these jeans. Now, these jeans that belonged to Paul were found in a debris pile in his basement where a cadaver canine alerted to his handler that there were human remains in that area. So really compelling evidence in front of this jury for day 12 of testimony. Let's bring back in our guest panel, get their opinions on it. Randy Kessler, David DeLugas, and Judge Larry Seidlin with us. Let me start with you, David, your opinion of this case and that evidence.
Well, we often comment how stupid and evil these people are. Well, you're even more stupid and more evil than the other murderers when you kill the kids and let the jurors see that. You're toast. If a juror is going to be looking for a way to convict simply because of the victims, and it's heart-wrenching to even see their pictures on there. So, an idiot. There's more comment, but it's probably not what we want to put on air.
It's so hard when you see those photos.
It's tough.
Judge Seidlin, your opinion of this evidence and how it goes over with a jury when they start to hear these connections.
They got the defendant by the throat. The evidence is overwhelming. What happened to church and synagogue and mosques? Don't these people have any touch with God? I mean, the brothers are fighting over money, and the brother that was killed was saying, "You took the money. How about the money?" And this sends this brother into a rage. He burns down the homes, he kills his brother, he kills the wife, and he kills the guy's 2 kids. They're just insane, fighting over money. I mean, it's sickening. What happened to spirituality and goodness? And this guy's gonna get what he deserves. He's gonna go away for a very long time. The evidence is so overwhelming. There's showing you so many mistakes this moron made. Another nut job that we have in our community.
It's nice that there's a judge that's been on the bench as long as this judge has been on the bench, and he's still looking for the good in people. You know, after all he's seen and all the bad stuff he's seen, we watched. But, you know, the judge said they got him by the throat. I'd use another body part. They got him even stronger than by the throat. You know, jeans and stupid. Stupid, not just for killing kids, but for leaving bloody jeans where canines could find them. I mean, you haven't watched enough TV shows to say you burn the clothes, you get rid of the evidence, you dump it. Leaving jeans with the DNA of the victims on it, and then you got to explain it away. Triple dumb.
Yeah, when we look at some of these are photos from other days of evidence, the basement of Paul Caneiro. I mean, this goal, David, was, according to the prosecution, to destroy the evidence, but it didn't go so far as to that. They were still able to find the evidence. They were still able to draw DNA from even burned and damaged genes. I mean, this is how far our technology can go now.
Well, the technology's there. I'm just thinking ChatGPT would have a field day. Hey, why don't I leave the genes and then down in the basement with some other debris? Like Randy pointed out, and the judge as well. The evidence is overwhelming because he's an idiot. He's a moron. He's evil. He can't plan well. It's amazing that people function in society are the same ones who attempt to commit a crime and apparently don't watch enough TV shows or watch court TV to figure out all the things you should not do.
And you wonder why their business relationship was going bad and why the business wasn't doing well.
Well, apparently, if he did what he's accused of, he's very meticulous in going through this plot, but wasn't good with money. Right. Not good with money, apparently. Let's look at what our Court of Opinion team chose as number 2 today and all that evidence coming out. This was DNA evidence. This is Sophia Caneiro, so again, the niece, the daughter of this family inside of the home. Her DNA was also found on a pair of gloves in that same debris pile as the jeans in Paul's basement. And her DNA was found on the blade of a handle of a knife, blade and handle of a knife found in Keith Caneiro's home. So it's unclear at this point whether this knife was the murder weapon or whether it's connected to Paul, but these jurors are getting the evidence piece by piece. And one thing, Judge, I think that's interesting is that they first bring in the investigators to bring in all of these evidence to say they found it. Now we're bringing in the DNA analysts to say this DNA was found on it and who it's connected to. But oftentimes they're not even bringing back in the same evidence that the investigators showed them. So these prosecutors are going to have to tie everything up at the end of this case.
Yeah, the prosecutor has a tough job. He's painting a picture, a beautiful oil painting of what took place. And they're in no rush. The prosecutor's not in a rush. They're going to show everything that they have. And it'll be overwhelming against this defendant. And his actions are just horrible. And he's going to show motive. You don't need to prove motive, the prosecutor, but they're going to show motive that it was over money. And that's going to really be damning. And normally, the state attorney, the boss, doesn't try these cases because there's circumstantial evidence. And the state attorney always wants to win because they're up for re-election, so they have one of their chiefs try this kind of case because it's never 100%. You want the one where everyone sees them shoot the gun. But here, the prosecutor is meticulously indicating all the evidence to the jury. And they're going to go slow. They're not catching a Greyhound bus here. They'll go slow and let the jury see exactly what took place.
Oh, yeah, that pace. We're at day number 12, going into day 13 tomorrow. Where does the defense go, Randy, in this case? Do you think that they are going to put on a case, or are they going to let the closing arguments handle this one?
Anything they say digs them a deeper ditch, I think. I mean, they've got to really put the prosecution to the test. Like the judge said, prosecutors got to tie this all together. There's a lot of evidence there, but it's not clean and neat, and here's a video of the guy shooting the gun or pulling the trigger or stabbing. Make the prosecution prove their case, because anything a defense witness says, and I can't think of a defense witness, the defendant is certainly not going to testify. All they're going to do is say, you know, we've already dug the grave, now we're just going to put the lid on it if we bring up a witness and let them cross-examine. I can't imagine defense is going to do anything other than say, hey, nice try, but you didn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
I think there's only one defense you could possibly make. The prosecutor wants to get reelected. They have this track record of conviction. They have to win this case. So they got all the experts, all the police officers together, and they manufactured all this evidence in order to convict them, because it's so overwhelming, it's beyond the pale to consider that anybody could be this stupid to do this crime and leave all this evidence behind. So it must be a plot by the prosecutors and the law enforcement officers. I don't know, maybe that's the only out.
We will see where it goes and where those closing arguments go. We're not there yet, though. They are coming back for more testimony on the state side tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. there in New Jersey. When we come back, we are going beyond the gavel, breaking down the biggest true crime cases, and this is one that has been grabbing so many headlines. Today, host Savannah Guthrie, her mother, is still missing. That investigation now being treated as a possible crime. Why the investigators say they don't believe she left on her own.
As I said yesterday, we saw some things at the home that were concerning to us. We believe now, after we processed that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime, and we're asking the community's help.
Welcome back. We are taking you beyond the gavel, and we have developing news out of Arizona. Officials continue to ask for the public's help in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie. The 84-year-old was reported missing from her Tucson home around noon on Sunday. And at first, deputies launched this large search, but now investigators say this is no longer just a search and rescue mission. You heard the sheriff there in Pima County talking about the details. Now, during the press conference that was given by that sheriff, we were told that evidence at the home points to a possible crime. Authorities noted that she needs daily medication that could be life-threatening if missed, making them even more certain that she didn't leave on her own accord.
She is very limited in her mobility, right? We know she didn't just walk out of there. That we know. There are other things at the scene that indicate there was she did not leave on her own.
Now, her family says she is of sound mind, that she is not someone they're worried about cognitively. This is not dementia related. They don't think she just wandered off. And they released this statement saying, on behalf of our family, I want to thank everyone for the thoughts and prayers and messages of support. Right now, our focus remains on the safe return of our dear mom. We thank law enforcement for their hard work on this case and encourage anyone with information to contact the Pima County Sheriff's Office Department. Their number, 520-351-4900. We also are showing that on our screen, or will during this segment. Let's bring back in our power panel. We have Randy Kessler, David DeLugas, and Judge Larry Seidlin. Judge, I'm going to start out there with you. The sheriff being very candid, more candid than we sometimes see at this stage of an investigation. What are you hearing that's most concerning as these details trickle in?
Well, as a former guest on the Today Show, Savannah was always respectful and kind to me. And so my love goes out to her and her family. The sheriff's playing poker. The sheriff's holding a few cards and wants to smoke out this suspect. And there's more to it that meets the eye. There's a trail, and the sheriff sees some smoke there at the home of the mother, sees it and wants to get this suspect. And they're going to have unlimited resources in this case. Savannah's really world famous. They're gonna pour in so much resource. They're gonna get this woman or man that may have harmed the mother. They're gonna find this person. You can bet your last dollar on it.
Randy, the sheriff mentioning that this is a crime scene because of the things we saw that were concerning inside of the home. He didn't go so far as to say we saw blood or we saw anything in particular, even forced entry, but said there was enough to say this is a crime scene and someone caused her to leave. She didn't leave by herself. What's your opinion on where we are?
It's interesting that he didn't reveal. Was it forced entry? Was it that they saw skid marks because they were dragging her out? What's interesting to me is that what's the goal? What's the motivation? Is there not, there's no ransom note, there's no call. And when you have a victim like this, I mean, this kidnapping could turn to murder very fast, right? She's got some medical issues, some medical needs, some medicines that she needs. And whoever's out there, if you're doing this, you know, kidnapping, okay, you know, you cut a deal. She dies because you took her, that's felony murder, it's murder. That's it. I mean, find a way to solve this, end it now.
David, these details, they just shock the conscience because you're thinking of an elderly woman, 84 years old. She lived alone, didn't have anyone living there in the home with her, but no doubt felt safe in her community. And now the sheriff is saying, if you see her, you see someone with her, take a picture, send it to us.
And it makes sense. It took me a minute to understand why isn't the sheriff revealing more information? Because we all want to know. And it's likely because the tip line is going to light up with false reports. People who have a little bit of information, who want the 15 seconds of fame, who say they saw something or know something, or the person who confesses to have done it, but they clearly didn't. They're just getting the information from the sheriff's office. So not revealing the information has its purpose. So thankfully, I believe the sheriff's office will do what they can do. And now it's a matter of finding where did this criminal misstep, where did this moron make the mistake that is going to lead to the recovery of the woman, hopefully in good health. And having had an elder parent, both parents, you know, my heart goes out to everybody. And I think we all react the same way. It's just wrong. It's bad enough when you do it to kids. Well, heck, it's wrong when you do it to anybody.
But certainly the more vulnerable among us, our elderly, our children, and so many warm thoughts here at Court TV because Savannah Guthrie, a Court TV alum, used to be a legal correspondent here back in the early 2000s. So our hearts definitely go out to her family. I want to listen to something that the sheriff said today about all of the technology that they can use, but also a plea about what they need more of.
We are at a time where, in this investigation, we're now moving forward where we need to depend on technology. I hate politics, but I have to remind our political leaders that they need to quit this banter of every time law enforcement leaders come to you for a need, that you give up these ridiculous remarks about how it's going to be misused. AI is a bad, evil word. The cameras are very bad and evil. I'm tired of that. Those tools in the right hands, with the right minds and the right approaches, are extremely valuable to solving crimes just like this.
Judge Seidlin, want to get your opinion on that part of what the sheriff had to say. Does he have a point? Is there sometimes pushback on the technology that law enforcement needs when there's also the question of privacy and intrusion from some of the advancements?
I was the legal advisor to the sheriff. He was an old Irishman. He was a brilliant guy. I was fortunate that he was one of my mentors. And he said to me that politics permeates every institution in America. Every agency is politically involved. And I remembered that whenever I would conduct myself. The sheriff wants good insight from individuals that may know something about this woman's appearance. He wants all the information he can get that's legitimate. And there's some negativity towards law enforcement because of the incidents that are taking place across this country with maybe a little bit too much aggressive law enforcement. So He's putting on a friendly face, and he wants some friendly answers from people that may know something about Nancy's disappearance. And I'm hoping someone does come forward, or a number of people come forward to try to help us find where she is. We're hoping she's still alive and kicking.
Absolutely. We hope she is found safe. We do have to leave it there. We know the law enforcement in the area, they have said to check cameras if you are her neighbors, to send that information in. They are asking for the community's help. We have to take our break, but when we come back, we'll get the hot takes on the cold facts. Our panel giving us their opinions on today's biggest headlines. And we're breaking down headlines about 3 people facing serious charges. One of them is a judge. Why she's on the other side of the bench. Up next.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a widow who wrote a children's book on grief stands accused of poisoning her husband. We have key takeaways from today's big hearing in the case against Corey Richins.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Let's get our panel's hot takes on the cold facts. Here are the biggest headlines that we are following on the legal news circuit. This first one, a decades-old cold case, now officially in court. The trial for a man accused of killing University of Georgia law student Tara Baker. More than 20 years ago, it began today. Baker was found dead inside of her burned Athens apartment back in January of 2001, just one day before her birthday. Edric Faust, he was arrested in 2023 after investigators revisited the case. Now, that renewed push came under the Coleman-Baker Act, a law partially named for Baker that encourages law enforcement to take another look at cold cases. Let's bring in our guest panel, get their takes on this one. Randy Kessler, David DeLugas, and Judge Larry Seidlin. You have 25 seconds to state your case. Randy, your take on this one.
So they say justice delayed is justice denied, but that's not exactly right. Justice delayed is better than no justice. You know, and this act is great. And look, the evolution in chemicals and technology and testing and DNA, it's better now than it was back then. So there are going to be more and more cases like this where you get them because of today's technology. You couldn't have gotten them back then. Glad we've got these advances in technology.
David, are you surprised that it took a new law in order to get law enforcement to revisit a case like this?
Not at all. What it took is $5.3 million allocated by the Georgia legislature. Governor Kemp, shout out to him and the legislators who got this act passed, because they also set up a special cold case unit, funded it, and that's what it takes. So judge politics worked in this case.
Judge Larry Seidlin, your 25-second take on this one.
Today's science did in the defendant. Today's science grabs you by the ass, and he's gonna meet his maker, this defendant. He's gonna meet him soon. They're gonna take him all the way through the system. He'll be in jail for a very long time.
All right, we will.
Body part this time.
We will continue to follow that case when the trial starts. Let's go to our second story. This one out of Bexar County, Texas. A judge there is facing felony and misdemeanor charges after allegedly ordering a defense attorney to be handcuffed and detained in the jury box during a courtroom dispute. Now, Judge Rosie Seidlin Gonzalez, she turned herself in following that indictment and was later released on a $40,000 bond. Now, this whole dispute, it started when attorney Elizabeth Russell asked to pause a probation hearing to speak with her client. The judge told her she was not allowed to be argumentative and ordered her to be taken into custody. So she was placed in handcuffs and put in that jury box. This isn't the judge's first legal run-in. She was once fined for bringing a loaded rainbow-painted gun through the San Antonio International Airport. Let's get our takes from our panel. David, have you ever been held in contempt of court?
Close. I had a judge tell me if I lifted either hand off the table when I was talking, he would hold me in contempt and arrest me. What distinguishes this to me is the judge has powers of criminal contempt and somebody can be taken into custody. But as I understand the facts, that wasn't what the judge did. The judge did not hold this person, this lawyer, in criminal contempt, and therefore the kidnapping, the handcuffing, and maybe some politics by the prosecutor who indicted this.
Let's go to Judge Seidlin and get his take on this one. Very eager to get a judge's perspective on this one.
This judge is burnt out. This judge should be in Hawaii soaking up the sun. She's had it. She's done. 28 years I spent on a bench. I never held anyone in contempt of court. You hold someone in contempt of court, it means you lost control of the courtroom. And there's indirect contempt, which means someone did something wrong outside the courtroom, which be non-payment of child support, something like that. This is direct contempt. So the judge should have said you're in direct contempt.
Judge, I'm sorry to have to cut you off. You're 25 seconds.
And then you
up.
have a hearing. You don't put the handcuffs on.
I know. I hate it. Randy Kessler, your take.
All right, so there are a lot of really good judges. There are so many more good judges than there are bad judges. But if you ask any group of lawyers in any community, there's always one. There's always somebody who you say, that judge has robitis. That judge is just too big for their britches. They don't recognize it. You know, there are two sides to every issue, and we're just people, and we're all in it together, lawyers and judges. Break bread together, talk together, and realize if a lawyer is doing something because they're upset, there might be a good reason. There are times when a lawyer should be held accountable and maybe should be thrown in contempt, but it sounds like this judge had a few go-arounds.
Yeah, and now is facing those charges. Let's get to our third and final story of the night. Days before jury selection is set to begin, Corey Richens is again asking to move her murder trial out of Summit County in Utah, arguing she can't get a fair jury there. She's accused of poisoning her husband with fentanyl and allegedly altering his life insurance before his death. Defense attorneys say about 85% of potential jurors already know about the case in that area. A judge has not yet ruled on the venue request. Judge Larry Seidlin, I'll start with you. What are the odds we get this case moved?
It's not moving. It's cost too much money to move a case to another area, and it's uncomfortable for everyone to have to travel like that. This case will remain where it is. And any case sometimes has so much fame that everyone's going to hear about it. So you turn to the jury and said, can you disregard what you read and watched on TV about the case? And they say yes.
Perfect timing. Let's move to Randy Kessler. What's your take on whether we see this case get delayed?
Well, I hate disagreeing with the judge. Don't hold me in contempt. But I think the judge might take the side of safety, which is, why give them a possible appeal, right? We had the hot car death here where they moved it to another county. You can move it across the state. Maybe you take that issue out of the appellate courts, or maybe the judge wants to handle the case. It's going to be up to the judge, but I would not be shocked if it did get moved.
David, sometimes the judge will want to hold jury selection first to see if you can seat a fair jury, and they almost always can.
They can.
Do you think the judge might do that with his last-minute request?
I actually think that'll happen here. If you think about this case, we all have heard about the facts in this case. This is the mom who went on TV, who wrote the book about handling grief. She created publicity. Maybe she created good publicity, put herself out there in a positive light. Except maybe she also killed her husband, so we don't know. I think the case stays there. The judge is going to deny the request. It may go up on appeal and come back, even pre-trial.
Interesting opinion that she created publicity for herself. Our thanks to our power panel. Amazing opinions tonight. Judge Larry Seidlin, David DeLugas, and Randy Kessler. We appreciate everything from you. Let's get to our break. That's it for Court of Opinion. I'm Julia Janae, reminding you we all have opinions, but they should be rooted in the facts. Always strive to respect the other person's opinion, even if you don't agree with it. Now, coming up, we have closing arguments with our lead anchor, Vinny Politan. He has the latest on that desperate search for Today Show host Savannah Guthrie's missing mom, Nancy Guthrie. He's going to tune in for the minute details, the search going on this hour. He's also going to have Cody Thomas with a live report on what the very latest in as that search continues there out in Arizona. Don't go anywhere. You're watching Court TV.